She left no will, no goodbye, just a box of keys labeled don't. Ellen Carr hadn't set foot in her childhood home in over 18 years. The moment she stepped into the entryway, the scent of lavender and mothballs struck her like a memory she didn't ask for. Her mother, Margaret Carr, had passed away 3 weeks earlier. No funeral. No goodbye. Just a lawyer's curt call and a request to collect the house keys. The Victorian home loomed as it always had, with its peeling white paint, wraparound porch, and ivy that seemed to choke the bricks more each year. Inside, everything remained frozen in time, the dusty grandfather clock still ticking in the foyer, family portraits with Ellen's face aging only in real life, and a cold silence that settled like fog on her skin. She wasn't here to mourn. She was here to clean up, throw away, and forget. The silence was oppressive, like the house knew she had come back. She moved room to room, opening curtains, letting light in, disrupting the shadows that had made a home of the place. Her mother had lived alone for the past 12 years, becoming more reclusive after Ellen moved to Seattle. They hadn't spoken in over 2 years. In the attic, while sorting through boxes of church records, dried flowers, and tax documents, she came across a small wooden chest tucked behind a broken fan. Inside, bundled in twine, were dozens of house keys, each tagged and dated meticulously: basement padlock, 1982, storage locker, 1994, shutout back, 2001. But one key stood out. Silver, unmarked, and attached to a yellowing tag that simply read, "Don't." Something about the word froze her fingers midair. The handwriting was her mother's, tight and deliberate, the kind she used in birthday cards and bank forms. Ellen stared at it for a long time, heart ticking faster. Why keep a key and label it with a warning? She pocketed the key, telling herself it was just one of many oddities in this place. But even as she returned to boxing up books and sorting linens, the feel of the key in her jeans burned against her skin. Later that evening, after hauling 4 trash bags to the driveway, Ellen walked past the second-floor hallway. A draft prickled the back of her neck. She turned. There, between the linen closet and her parents' bedroom, was a small irregularity in the wallpaper. A line that didn't match the paneling around it. She pressed her fingers along it and felt a faint creak. The wall shifted. Just slightly. Behind the faded floral paper was wood. Old, rough. The pattern of the grains suggested a doorframe. She stepped back. A room? There was no room there. She had grown up in this hallway. Played hide-and-seek in this hallway. Laid sick in bed while listening to her parents argue just beyond it. And yet, there it was. A seam. A secret. Ellen leans in, breath held, and gently presses. The wood gives way slightly, just enough for her to see a tiny, hidden latch. Some rooms don't want to be found. This one was waiting. Ellen stared at the latch as if it might disappear if she blinked. Her hand moved on its own, trembling fingers curling around the cold brass. A soft click echoed in the narrow hallway as the panel unlatched. The door was heavier than it looked, old and swollen from years of being sealed. When it finally gave way, a creaking sound groaned through the house like an exhale that had waited decades. Behind it, a narrow, dust-choked staircase descending into darkness. The air was different here. Thick. Undisturbed, she hesitated at the threshold, the flashlight from her phone barely piercing the black below. The steps creaked beneath her weight as she descended, hand trailing along the wall for balance. This stairwell didn't belong to the house she remembered. It was narrower, the walls raw and unfinished, smelling of mildew and old wood. Cobwebs clung to her jacket as she ducked under a low beam. There were no signs this passage had been touched in decades. At the bottom, a small landing opened to a rusted steel door. A faded brass keyhole blinked back at her, waiting. Scratches lined the edges, as if someone had tried, and failed, to get inside by force. Ellen's breath caught. She pulled the silver key from her pocket and held it in front of the lock. Her hands shook. She shouldn't do this. She did it anyway. The key turned with a reluctant clunk. Inside, a room frozen in time. Soft pastel wallpaper. a rocking horse. A crib. A faded baby mobile hanging from the ceiling. The smell of talcum powder, plastic, and something faintly rotten. A lace curtain barely moved from an unseen draft. Everything was intact. Pristine, in fact. Untouched by time. No dust, no decay. It was like a museum of a life that never aged. On the wall, a series of framed photographs. Ellen approached slowly. The first showed a baby in a yellow bonnet. The next, a chubby toddler with a crooked smile. Her breath stilled. None of the faces were hers. And on the crib sat a sealed envelope. Yellowed. Fragile. It was addressed in her mother's unmistakable hand, "To my daughter, if she ever finds this." Ellen peeled it open, her fingers trembling. The first line made her knees buckle, "You had a twin." Her name was Ivy. Some rooms don't want to be found. This one was waiting. Ellen stared at the latch as if it might disappear if she blinked. Her hand moved on its own, trembling fingers curling around the cold brass. A soft click echoed in the narrow hallway as the panel unlatched. The door was heavier than it looked, old and swollen from years of being sealed. When it finally gave way, a creaking sound groaned through the house like an exhale that had waited decades. Behind it, a narrow, dust-choked staircase descending into darkness. The air was different here. Thick. Undisturbed, she hesitated at the threshold, the flashlight from her phone barely piercing the black below. The steps creaked beneath her weight as she descended, hand trailing along the wall for balance. This stairwell didn't belong to the house she remembered. It was narrower, the walls raw and unfinished, smelling of mildew and old wood. Cobwebs clung to her jacket as she ducked under a low beam. There were no signs this passage had been touched in decades. At the bottom, a small landing opened to a rusted steel door. A faded brass keyhole blinked back at her, waiting. Scratches lined the edges, as if someone had tried, and failed, to get inside by force. Ellen's breath caught. She pulled the silver key from her pocket and held it in front of the lock. Her hands shook. She shouldn't do this. She did it anyway. The key turned with a reluctant clunk. Inside, a room frozen in time. Soft pastel wallpaper. A rocking horse. A crib. A faded baby mobile hanging from the ceiling. The smell of talcum powder, plastic, and something faintly rotten. A lace curtain barely moved from an unseen draft. Everything was intact. Pristine, in fact. Untouched by time. No dust, no decay. It was like a museum of a life that never aged. On the wall, a series of framed photographs. Ellen approached slowly. The first showed a baby in a yellow bonnet. The next, a chubby toddler with a crooked smile. Her breath stilled. None of the faces were hers. And on the crib sat a sealed envelope. Yellowed. Fragile. It was addressed in her mother's unmistakable hand, "To my daughter, if she ever finds this." Ellen peeled it open, her fingers trembling. The first line made her knees buckle, "You had a twin." Her name was Ivy. She always felt like half a person. Now she knew why. The air in the hallway felt heavier now, as if the door had released more than just dust and old air. Ellen returned to her bedroom and sat on the edge of the mattress she hadn't touched since high school, letter clutched in her hand. Her twin. She stared at herself in the mirror across the room. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Her mother's chin. And yet, all she could think about was the other face, the dark-haired girl with wary eyes. Had she really grown up alongside someone and forgotten? Or had she never known? She needed answers. Real ones. The next day, Ellen drove into town. The local hospital still stood, though half its wings were shuttered and repurposed. Records had been digitized, but a kind receptionist with gray curls and quiet curiosity led her into the archives. It took 2 hours, a bit of lying, and a coffee bribe. Then she found it. The Carr twins. Ellen Margaret Carr and Ivy Marin Carr, born July 3, 1987. Both alive. Both healthy at birth. No death certificate. No transfer to social services. Nothing about a stillbirth. Only a pediatric note in red ink. 5 weeks later, infant 2 transferred to private facility, behavioral monitoring. Private facility? Ellen's throat tightened. She asked for more. But the trail ended there. That night, she returned to the nursery and stood before the mirror above the dresser. She had a vague memory, something about this mirror. A game she used to play. A rhyme she would chant. It echoed faintly in her skull, "Mirror, mirror, show me two, one is me, and one is you." She wiped the fog from the glass. Behind the mirror, tucked between wood and wallpaper, she found a folded photo. This one different. Blurry. Rushed. 2 toddlers, side by side. Both crying. Ellen had seen her own childhood photos hundreds of times. She knew her own face. And yet, she couldn't tell which of the two was her. A wave of nausea hit. Had Ivy been hidden away? Or had they simply chosen to forget her? She always felt like half a person. Now she knew why. The air in the hallway felt heavier now, as if the door had released more than just dust and old air. Ellen returned to her bedroom and sat on the edge of the mattress she hadn't touched since high school, letter clutched in her hand. Her twin. She stared at herself in the mirror across the room. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Her mother's chin. What do you do with a sister no one told you existed? Sleep evaded Ellen that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to silence the buzzing of thoughts ricocheting through her skull. Ivy. A name. A face. A life unspoken. And worse, a warning. By morning, she was searching for more. Her laptop glowed with the dull light of online records, yearbooks, birth registries. Most results were dead ends. Ivy Carr didn't exist. But in the town's old daycare records, scanned into an obscure database of the local historical society, she found something. Carr, IVM. Enrolled, September 1991. Withdrawn, October 1991. No contact forward. 1 month. Ellen called the daycare. No answer. She visited. The building was now an antique store. The owner, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, remembered nothing of the child but was oddly intrigued by Ellen's name. Your mother was the quiet type, the woman said. Kept to herself. Brought a girl here once, real sweet. But she never smiled. Back at the house, Ellen rifled through photo albums. Nothing. No traces of Ivy in the family volumes, but in a forgotten envelope behind a drawer, she found something chilling. A candid photo. 2 girls on a swing set. One clearly Ellen. The other, half obscured, looking directly into the lens with a haunted expression. On the back, Ivy. October 91. Her hands trembled as she scanned the picture. She had no memory of it. No memory of Ivy. That night, her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. A distorted voice, nearly a whisper, "Stop looking. You don't want to know her." Ellen played it back 3 times. It wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. She checked the locks on the doors and windows. Then another voicemail came through. Same voice. 1 sentence, "You chose her then. Don't make that mistake again." She froze. The call history had no number. No trace. Just the word, unknown. As she deleted the voicemail in panic, another message popped up, a photo. It was the same swing set picture. Only this time, Ivy's face was crossed out in red ink. He hadn't seen Ellen in 30 years. But he still remembered Ivy. Ellen drove past the edge of town that afternoon, retracing the quiet backroads of her childhood. As the trees grew thicker and the houses farther apart, her mind wandered to a name she hadn't thought of in years, Walter Griggs. Walter had been her father's handyman. A recluse who lived in a trailer near the woods and fixed things when they broke, and a few things even when they hadn't. He'd seen the Carrs at their best and worst. His trailer hadn't moved, still sat beneath a sagging oak, roof patched with tin, front porch sagging under the weight of rusted tools. She stepped out of her car and knocked on the door. Nothing. Then the curtain shifted. A moment later, the door creaked open. Walter looked like a relic, grizzled beard, faded denim, eyes sharp as broken glass. He squinted, then recognition flickered. "Ellen?" She nodded. "I need to talk. About my sister." His face paled. He stepped aside without a word. They sat in silence for a while. Then Walter spoke, voice low. "Ivy. God. You remember her?" "Not really, I found a room in the house. With her things." He nodded slowly. "That room's cursed, Ellen. Should have stayed sealed. Your ma never wanted no one to go in there." "Why? What happened to Ivy?" Walter leaned back. "She was different. Smart. Too smart. But, strange. Talked to shadows. Drew things she shouldn't have known. Your ma got scared. Said Ivy was sick. But I saw her. She wasn't sick. She was angry. And scared. Did something happen?" He looked out the window. "The night your daddy left, there was a scream. I was there. Your ma called me, said she needed help. The basement was locked up. When I got in, the floor was red. Ivy was gone." "Gone where?" Walter shook his head. "Nobody knows. Cops said she ran off." "But how does a 5-year-old vanish like that?" Ellen felt cold. Walter stood and shuffled to an old drawer. He pulled out a faded envelope and handed it to her. Inside, a photograph. Ivy, standing in the woods, barefoot. Taken in 2007. "She came back," he said. "At least once. She came looking for you." On the back of the photo, in childish handwriting, "Where did you go, Ellen? The mind buries trauma. But houses remember." Back at the house, Ellen sat in the nursery, the photo from Walter resting on her knees. The sunlight through the lace curtain danced over Ivy's young face, blurred by time and shadow. Ivy had come back. She had looked for her. So why had Ellen never known? That night, sleep came in short, restless fragments. Dreams of a scream, a locked basement door, and her mother holding something behind her back. When she awoke gasping, drenched in sweat, she no longer felt unsure. Something had happened. She had seen it. Or heard it. Her memory was not gone, just buried. She wandered the house in the early dawn, barefoot on the creaking floorboards. Down to the basement. The air was heavier here. The shadows longer. She remembered a red tricycle. A blanket folded on a chair. A single bulb swinging from the ceiling. She found the wall behind the boiler suspicious. Something about the seams didn't look right. With effort, she moved the heavy boiler an inch, then another, until she saw it, a door. Painted over. She scraped at the paint until a brass handle showed. Her hands trembled as she pulled it open. Inside, a narrow staircase spiraled down farther into the earth. It wasn't on any blueprint. No one ever mentioned it. The walls here, the mind buries trauma. But houses remember. Back at the house, Ellen sat in the nursery, the photo from Walter resting on her knees. The sunlight through the lace curtain danced over Ivy's young face, blurred by time and shadow. Ivy had come back. She had looked for her. So why had Ellen never known? That night, sleep came in short, restless fragments. Dreams of a scream, a locked basement door, and her mother holding something behind her back. When she awoke gasping, drenched in sweat, she no longer felt unsure. Something had happened. She had seen it. Or heard it. Her memory was not gone, just buried. She wandered the house in the early dawn, barefoot on the creaking floorboards. Down to the basement. The air was heavier here. The shadows longer. She remembered a red tricycle. A blanket folded on a chair. A single bulb swinging from the ceiling. She found the wall behind the boiler suspicious. Something about the seams didn't look right. With effort, she moved the heavy boiler an inch, then another, until she saw it, a door. Painted over. She scraped at the paint until a brass handle showed. Her hands trembled as she pulled it open. Inside, a narrow staircase spiraled down farther into the earth. It wasn't on any blueprint. Behind this door was not a memory. It was a truth still breathing. Ellen didn't leave the house for the rest of the day. The journal sat beside her on the kitchen table like a bomb that had already exploded. She reread the entries over and over. Each line written in Ivy's trembling, isolated voice only deepened the echo inside Ellen. She hadn't been just forgotten. She'd been erased. And yet, she came back. The photo from Walter. The voicemail. The scrawled warning. Ellen needed to know everything. There was one place left. The basement room wasn't all. The blueprints didn't match. There was more. She examined the corner of the chamber Ivy had written in. The floor felt different there, a hollow thunk when she tapped it. Pulling up the dusty tiles revealed a trapdoor, locked with a steel latch. She hesitated. Then remembered the key. It turned easily. A second staircase spiraled down. Cold air rushed up to meet her like a breath from the past. The vault door at the bottom was different. Thicker. With industrial bolts and a heavy turn handle. She braced herself and pulled. Inside was a sterile white room. Metal walls. A single flickering light overhead, and on the far side, a thick glass panel, like a two-way mirror. A speaker grill. And a chair. The kind used for psychiatric restraints. A table beside it held small items. Crayons. Broken toys. Old meal trays with dried remnants. This wasn't just confinement. It was observation. This room had monitored Ivy. Not just held her. Studied her. Files sat in a locked drawer. Ellen broke it open. Inside, medical documents. Behavior charts. Video transcripts. Margaret's name was listed as the guardian. Ellen's father's name was crossed out. One file read, subject exhibits advanced auditory recall, verbal projection, and dissociative identity behaviors. Further observation recommended. No official diagnosis. Recommend full containment. Another note, subject mentions twin repeatedly. Insists Ellen is watching. The air felt thinner. The room began spinning. This was never about illness. It was fear. Margaret had chosen to hide Ivy, and pretend Ellen was the only child. Ellen backed away. The mirror stared at her. A sudden flicker from the other side. Movement. A shadow. A figure. Then gone. A whisper came through the speaker, low and raspy, Ellen. I remember you. Some truths wait 30 years. Others are hunting you. Ellen staggered back from the vault, locking it behind her as if it could hold in the past. But the whisper followed her up the stairs, crawling into her bones. She remembers me. Back upstairs, she dug into her mother's old desk, desperate for anything else, something that could explain the vault, the experiments, the surveillance. She found a hidden drawer behind the bottom cabinet. Inside, sealed in an envelope yellowed with age, was a letter addressed to Child Welfare Services. Unsent. She opened it with shaking fingers. Asterisk to whom it may concern, my name is Margaret Carr. I am the mother of Ivy Marin Carr. My daughter is not well. I have tried everything, but I cannot reach her. She does not sleep. She harms animals. She says her sister lives inside the mirrors. Please help me. Please take her. I am afraid of my own child. Star. Ellen dropped the letter. This wasn't concern. It was fear. But it wasn't based on illness. It was based on misunderstanding. Misdiagnosis. Prejudice. She went through the desk again, digging deeper, and found another envelope, newer, with her name on it. Inside, a photo. It was Ivy again, older. Teenaged. Standing at the edge of the property. Her expression unreadable. On the back, a date, 2007. Ivy had come back. Attached was a page torn from a journal. In Ivy's handwriting, "I stayed away like she asked. But Ellen never came. She never looked. She never knew me. But I know her. I watched her grow. I watched her laugh. I watched her forget." Ellen sat frozen. The envelope it came in was postmarked. Last week. Major twist number 2, Ivy was never truly gone. She has been writing Ellen for years, in disguised letters, postcards, and junk mail. Cliffhanger, a final letter falls from the envelope. It reads, "I'm ready now. Come find me. Before I find you. You wait your whole life for a meeting you're terrified of." Ellen drove north the next morning. The return address on the postmarked envelope had been smudged, but it matched a remote zip code in rural Maine. She wasn't sure what she was hoping to find. Closure? An apology? Or the ghost of a girl she never truly knew? After 3 hours of driving through winding forest roads, she pulled into a gravel drive beside a boarded-up building, an old psychiatric center, long abandoned. Its skeletal frame leaned like it could no longer bear its own secrets. She stepped out, gravel crunching underfoot, and crossed the threshold into the shadowed corridors. The air inside was cold, metallic, tinged with mildew and rot. Peeling paint. Graffiti. Silence. But something called her deeper inside. Room 214. The number was circled in the letter. The door was slightly ajar. Inside was a small cot, a mirror on the wall, and drawings pinned up with rusted tacks. The drawings were childlike. 2 girls holding hands. One always had her face crossed out. On the cot lay a stuffed bear. Its tag read, "To Ellen. Love, Ivy." She sat on the bed, heart racing. Footsteps. Someone was watching. She turned sharply. Down the hall, near the stairwell, stood a figure. Just visible through the broken window panes. A woman. Long black hair. A blue jacket. She turned away and vanished around the corner. Ellen sprinted after her. Through the rusted halls. Out into the woods. But the forest swallowed everything. No footprints. No voice. Just silence. You wait your whole life for a meeting you're terrified of. Ellen drove north the next morning. The return address on the postmarked envelope had been smudged, but it matched a remote zip code in rural Maine. She wasn't sure what she was hoping to find. Closure? An apology? Or the ghost of a girl she never truly knew? After 3 hours of driving through winding forest roads, she pulled into a gravel drive beside a boarded-up building. Truth isn't what sets you free. It's what undoes you. Ellen couldn't breathe. She stared at the Polaroid. Her own face. In the moment. Captured by someone she never saw. She wasn't alone in that building. Ivy was there. Watching. And still, she ran. Back at the house, Ellen locked every door and window. The light stayed on all night. Every shadow made her jump. Every creak twisted her stomach. But Ivy wasn't trying to hurt her. Not yet. She was showing her something. Leaving a trail. Ellen followed the clues Ivy left in her letters. Addresses. Phrases. Anagrams. Some junk mail returned to now make sense. She pulled out a stack from the recycling bin, rereading envelopes, flipping over pages. Ivy had been weaving her story through every unnoticed corner. The final clue led Ellen to a post office box in a nearby town. It had been rented under a fake name. Inside, a single manila folder waited. It contained Ivy's journal. The real one. The pages were meticulous. Her childhood. Her pain. Her silence. Her observations. They say I'm broken. But they broke me. I was loud because no one listened. I screamed because it was the only sound I could own. Ellen had her books. Her dolls. Her sunlight. I had a wall, and the names I whispered into it. Mom told me I was dangerous. But I was only angry. Angry at being born wrong. Or just born second. Ivy's voice was clear, articulate, poetic. She wasn't a monster. She was just lost. Cast aside. Made into something feared. She wanted Ellen to understand. And Ellen did. Tears streamed down her face as she turned each page. But the last entry turned everything inside out. I saw Ellen once. Outside the grocery store. She was laughing. She had no idea who I was. I almost said hello, but I realized she was better without me. So I left again. This time, I'll make sure she doesn't forget. This time, I want her to see me. Really see me. At the bottom of the folder was a note written in red ink, tomorrow. 7 p.m. Back where it started. Come alone. The house wasn't empty. It was watching. Ellen paced her living room floor, phone in hand, red inked note on the table. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. Back where it started. She knew exactly where Ivy meant. The nursery. But today was not tomorrow. And the house no longer felt like it belonged to her. That afternoon, Ellen went to town for groceries. Just 15 minutes. When she returned, something was wrong. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, silence. Nothing appeared out of place until she reached the kitchen. Every cabinet was open. Every drawer emptied, all the silverware laid out perfectly in parallel lines on the counter. Like surgical tools. She backed away slowly, heart racing. She checked the nursery. The crib had been moved. It now sat in the center of the room. Above it, written in lipstick on the mirror, "You took my life." The stuffed bear she had left on the dresser was gone. Her bedroom was worse. The closet door was ajar. A single dress she hadn't worn in years was laid out on the bed, shoes at its foot, necklace across the pillow. Like a wardrobe chosen for her. In the bathroom, condensation fogged the mirror, as if someone had just stepped out of a hot shower. She hadn't been home for over an hour. She grabbed a knife from the kitchen and checked every room. No one. Not even a footprint. But in the nursery, the bear had returned. Propped up. Eyes facing the mirror. That night, Ellen slept in her car. In the morning, the air in the house was still. No new messages. No new movements. But Ellen noticed something chilling. The old family photo in the hall. The house wasn't empty. It was watching. Ellen paced her living room floor, phone in hand, red inked note on the table. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. Back where it started. She knew exactly where Ivy meant. The nursery. But today was not tomorrow. And the house no longer felt like it belonged to her. That afternoon, Ellen went to town for groceries. Just 15 minutes. When she returned, something was wrong. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, silence. The past didn't burn. It was buried. Ellen sat at the kitchen table, the final note pressed between her fingers. She hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. The house around her groaned like it remembered too much. She thought of the fire. She had always believed it was an accident. A faulty outlet. Her father's cigarette. But the night Ivy disappeared, there had been a fire. Her mother had sworn it was electrical. The back half of the house was damaged. But now, Ellen saw the reports differently. She drove to the county clerk's office and requested the fire investigation from 1996. The official file had redactions. The cause of the fire had been listed as intentional, origin unknown. There were conflicting statements. Her mother said Ivy had run away into the woods. Her father had said Ivy was taken by something in the basement. Ellen stared at the transcripts. That night was never about a short circuit. It was about escape. She visited the old nurse who used to work at the local hospital, someone her mother mentioned in passing. The woman was in her 80s now, frail but lucid. When Ellen showed her Ivy's photo, the woman froze. "She's the one they made disappear," she whispered. "Maid? Your mother." "The sheriff. A man in a black coat. They told me to say she died. But I never saw a body. Just papers." Back at the house, Ellen rifled through the hidden files again. She found a document stamped "Confidential, Emergency Transfer Order." Subject: Ivy Marin Carr Directive, to be considered deceased for legal purposes. Containment authorized. Cover story in place. Ellen's heart pounded. The fire was a lie. Ivy hadn't died. Ivy had escaped. And they covered it up. Major twist number 3, Margaret had agreed to fake Ivy's death, after Ivy attacked their father in self-defense. The family agreed, no police, no exposure. Just silence. Ellen remembered blood. A scream. The fire. A woman's voice telling her, "Don't look back." Ivy had been running. And Ellen had been told to forget. That evening, at 6:59 p.m., Ellen sat in the nursery, heart racing. The mobile above the crib began to spin slowly on its own. A voice whispered from the dark corner, "You finally came. There was never just one of us. Only one that got chosen." Ellen stood frozen in the nursery, her eyes fixed on the corner of the room. Ivy stepped forward. She was older now, Ellen's age, of course, but still carried the shadow of that little girl locked in a hidden room. Her hair was longer, darker, tangled. Her eyes burned with something between grief and rage. "You remember me now," Ivy said. Ellen nodded slowly. "I do." Ivy looked around the nursery. "This room was all I had. You had the world. You had Mom. You had birthdays and bike rides and sunlight. You were never meant to be locked away." "I was never meant to be anything," Ivy replied. Silence stretched. Ellen stepped forward, cautiously. "I didn't know. I swear to you. I know you didn't. But you never asked either. You never looked. I screamed for you every night." Ellen's voice cracked. "I was 5. I forgot what they told me to forget. They didn't have to tell me to forget. They just made sure I never existed." Ivy walked to the crib and picked up the bear. "I came back because I wanted to see if you'd see me now. Really see me." "I do. I need more than that." Ellen stepped beside her, heart racing. "Then what do you want, Ivy?" "To be seen. To be remembered. And for all of this," she gestured around the nursery. "To end." She held out a matchbox. "We burn it down. All of it. Every lie. Every wall that held me. We start over. Or we end here." Ellen stared at the box. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. "I don't want to erase you again," she whispered. "But I don't want to destroy myself either." Ivy's eyes softened. "Then let's end who they made us. Not who we are." Ellen took the matchbox. She struck the first match. The flame danced. Ivy watched her. "It has to be both of us. Together. Or not at all. Blood doesn't make you family. Choice does." The flame flickered between them. Ivy held Ellen's hand steady, her other hand resting on the old bear. Together, they lit the first corner of the nursery curtains. The fire took to the dry fabric instantly, curling up into the ceiling like a ghost escaping its cage. The house groaned. Ellen and Ivy didn't run. Not at first. They stood in the center of the nursery as flames crackled around them. This was where it started. This was where it needed to end. Smoke thickened. The crib ignited. The walls peeled. The past bled into the flames, then Ivy turned to Ellen. We go. Now. They stumbled through the halls, down the stairs, coughing, eyes watering. The living room was already catching. By the time they made it to the front porch, the entire second floor glowed orange. They stood on the lawn, shoulder to shoulder, watching the house burn. The neighbors gathered. No one asked questions. No one spoke. Because in that town, everyone had chosen silence a long time ago. For a while, neither sister said anything. Then Ivy broke it. I don't want revenge, she said. I want peace. Ellen nodded. So do I. Ivy pulled a small locket from her pocket. Inside were 2 photos, one of each of them as children. This is all I kept. Ellen took her hand. Then let's go find something new to keep. They left before the firefighters arrived. No statements. No stories. Just ash. Some endings don't need an audience. Some families aren't rebuilt. They're reborn. Months later, in a quiet town under different names, 2 women rent a small house near the coast. Ivy paints. Ellen writes. There's a photo on their mantel. 2 girls. Holding hands. Smiling.